I command you to heal yourself.
Well, hello. It's been a while. This is episode 24 of the Mustache Room podcast. Last time we did this, it was a couple of years ago. And I had a daughter, and she's awesome. Fatherhood, awesome. And a lot's changed since that episode, and I want to talk about it. The reason I'm starting now, I just did my second ayahuasca ceremony, and it was at the same place, Soul Quest, the Church of Mother Earth, the Ayahuasca Church in Orlando, Florida, where I did my retreat in 2018. And that was pre-baby. That was me trying to figure out, I'm committed to this fatherhood thing because I married my wife, and that was a precondition of our marriage. And so I was trying to figure out how to follow through with my commitment. And that was the most impactful thing that I had done in my life, because it essentially confirmed the fact that, yes, I can be a father. I'm capable of paternal instincts, all the things that I was worried about. I wasn't going to perpetuate the problems that I had experienced as a child and yada, yada. So in 2018, essentially, it was almost exactly 6 years prior to the most recent retreat, I found myself. And ever since then, fatherhood has been a tremendous adventure. I'm so glad that I went through with it, but I can attribute all of that to my 3 ayahuasca ceremonies in 2018. So I went back to Soul Quest, which is a church in Orlando. By their religious affiliation, they're allowed to use a psychedelic substance as part of their ceremonies, and that substance is ayahuasca. Chris Young, who is the co-founder, he's the brains behind that whole operation, has all the relationships with the indigenous people in the Amazon and just key players in the industry. He was the only face that I recognized from 2018. He is an awesome dude. He is, I owe him so much. I don't like to roll this up to one central being, a deity, a guru, any of that stuff, because I don't think it, I think it detracts from the medicine and the overall intent and mission of, what we try to do with it. But Chris was there. And for this particular ceremony, I was traveling with my wife. It was her mother's 60th birthday, and she also lives in Florida. So the timing matched up with that birthday celebration. That's the reason I went during this particular weekend. However, they had a renowned shaman in town. Isha is his name. He's from Brazil, tattoos all up and down his face. A little intimidating to look at, but the nicest, most really awesome dude. He was leading the ceremony. So I just happened to be there during this weekend. And a lot of people that had been to Soul Quest, that had done ayahuasca prior, they came back just for this guy. One girl had been there the week prior and came back just for Isha. So I lucked out because it really took the whole experience to a new level. And if you're not familiar with Soul Quest, if you just go online and look up Soul Quest, Church of Mother Earth, I believe ayahuascachurches.org is their website. You'll be able to see more about Chris, more about the institution, more about Isha. I think he's there this weekend and maybe a little bit longer to carry out some of the ceremonies. But this is the place. Obviously I could have traveled to Peru or Costa Rica or somewhere else where they're more renowned for carrying out those ceremonies, maybe closer to some of the indigenous folks and the actual medicine itself. However, this is the closest thing to doing that. They understand how to do it properly. They understand the medicine. They understand nurturing. They really do it very well. So maybe someday I'll travel abroad. Some of the people that were there during this weekend had gone all over the world, but they came back to Soul Quest. So in Orlando, you can find a place that can give you the same sort of healing that you would if you went for 7 days to Costa Rica or something like that. Maybe a little less fluffy, a little less cush, however, awesome. So I went back and, for those of you that aren't familiar with ayahuasca, let's actually just take a look at the medicine itself. And I don't want to call it a drug. I don't, it is a psychedelic. It's an entheogen, if you will. However, I want to call it medicine. I want to give it the respect that it deserves. Essentially, ayahuasca, and if you're not familiar with the spelling, Ayahuasca is essentially two medicines combined. There's one particular root that contains the DMT, dimethyltryptamine, I believe is how you pronounce it. Yeah, dimethyltryptamine. And then there's another medicine that is an MAOI inhibitor, monoamine oxidase inhibitor. And you mix the two together and it creates the ayahuasca. So DMT, I've done DMT by itself in the past. Some people have transformative experiences with DMT itself. However, I haven't. It's been really cool, and the music and the visuals are all awesome. However, I look at it more as a recreational medicine as opposed to a healing medicine. So with ayahuasca, you're able to mix the DMT with the MAOI and create something that is consumable orally. You drink it. It tastes disgusting. Got a little sweetness, kind of like sweet motor oil, if you will. So anybody that likes the taste, and there are a couple people during my ceremonies that supposedly like the taste, something's wrong with your taste buds. That's just my opinion. So it mixes the DMT with the MAOI and creates something that you can consume orally. And it is extremely powerful plant-based medicine. And they are able to, I don't know what their manufacturing process looks like, but I believe they do grow it on site. There's like a 7 or 10 year growth period. It's not something like psilocybin mushrooms where you can do it in a matter of a few months. It takes some time and an investment. I'm pretty sure you can buy the roots and things online if you want to. However, I would not recommend doing ayahuasca on your own time in your basement. It's something that's better served in a community, people that understand the process and really all the guts of it, and can help you get the most out of your experience. So that's what ayahuasca is. At Soul Quest, you go in for a Friday through Sunday retreat, and you can have 2 or 3 ceremonies throughout that weekend. So I signed up for 3 ceremonies. There's a ceremony Friday evening, there was a ceremony Saturday evening, and there was also a ceremony Saturday day. When you go through the ceremony, essentially they talk about the experience, they talk about making the right decision to be there, they talk a little bit about the medicine. It's pretty intimidating for people that haven't done it before because there's a lot of weight to the process. The medicine, there's a lot of figurative weight surrounding the medicine. So they try to allay your concerns, try to give you a smooth path into your experiences, but no matter what they do, it's pretty intimidating. So when you do your Friday ceremony, and the weekend was really great on Friday in terms of weather and environment, but then Saturday and Sunday was raining. So the Friday evening experience, we got to do it outside. We get to lay down among the trees, out by the fire, by Isha and all the instruments and everybody. It was as organic as possible. I would imagine in the Amazon, they're kind of in the same sort of situation. So minus the predators and stuff in the Amazon, I've been scared the crap out of me. But we laid outside. Everybody lays on a mattress. They have pillows, blankets, and you take the ceremonial brew. You drink, essentially, is what they call it. You drink your ayahuasca. They measure it out based on tablespoons. So if you're a rookie to the process, they may give you 1 tablespoon, maybe 1.5 tablespoons. I had done it before, so I took 2 tablespoons. And so you take the medicine, you drink, and everybody drinks at the same time. And the ceremony gets opened throughout the community, opens it as a group. There's a lot of ritualistic components to it, but everyone respects the process because you understand the weight associated with the medicine and the potential healing involved. So you drink the medicine, and then you wait. You sit down for a little bit. Some people lie down right away, but there's a waiting process. And in the waiting process, they play beautiful music. And the music is comprised of bongos and flutes and guitars, vocals, sometimes didgeridoos. I don't remember any of those on hand, but the goal is to prepare you for your journey and to guide you through your journey. For any of the people that are familiar with entheogens and familiar with psychedelics, music is a huge component to having a really good, effective experience. Set and setting are two components. The mindset and your physical and environmental settings are two huge pillars of a successful psychedelic experience. So the music plays into establishing the set and the setting, putting your mind at ease and allowing you to flow through and allow the medicine to do what it needs to do. And there is Mother Ayahuasca. Mother Aya is kind of the personification of this medicine. And she is a healing component. She looks after you, can provide you with advice, can plant seeds in your brain that grow into engineering and trying to fix issues that may be either evident or deeply pressed down inside of you. So Mother Ayahuasca is the personification of the medicine. She may come to people in something that is affable, describable, or ineffable, completely beyond description. However, she's there. And so you drink the medicine, everybody's together, we're lying by the fire, looking up at the trees, looking up at the sky, and you start to go through your journey. There's a medicine that they offer either before the ceremony starts, during the ceremony, sometimes after. It's pretty prevalent throughout the retreat. It's called hape, which is pronounced hape, but spelled R-A-P-E. So it's better that it's pronounced hape. However, I believe it's a Brazilian thing where they pronounce their R's and H in kind of in reverse. And so this hape medicine, and I let me look at the actual qualities of hape. Hape is essentially a tobacco. It's a nicotine. And I know nicotine in Western medicine has kind of been villainized and people use it for all the wrong reasons. However, hape is an implementation. It's a form of nicotine that is more therapeutic than anything else. So they grind up this hape, this nicotine tobacco substance, and they put it into, looks like a horn. I'm Jewish, so like a shofar, but less Ramsey twisty, kind of like a hollowed out horn. They put it in the end of a horn after it's been ground up, and they put one end of the horn in their mouth, whoever's administering the hape, and they put the other end of the horn in one of your nostrils, and they blow the hape into your nostril. It feels like right into your brain. So they ask that you exhale all your air and you take a huge breath in through your mouth and allow them to administer the hape into one of your nostrils. And then once they blow it up into your brain, you really feel the medicine, you feel the tobacco, the nicotine. And you allow it to settle, kind of take its course. There's like a lightheadedness component associated with it. And then they blow it into your other nostril. So both nostrils, blowing that hape into your brain, and they ask that you not breathe in or out of your nose for a little bit to let the hape take effect. So a lot of people are spitting because, obviously the nasal cavity kind of comes down into your throat. So a lot of people will be spitting out some of the remnants through their mouth, but nobody's breathing through their nose until the medicine has taken its course. Once it's taken its course, you can blow it out through your nose. It just looks like dirt coming out. But the hape is a nice way to kind of prepare yourself for the ceremony, create a calming effect. Those of you that smoke cigarettes, not me, you may be familiar with the somatic components associated with nicotine tobacco. So a lot of people did the hape beforehand to kind of create the mental space ready for the ceremony. Once we took the medicine and you're listening to the music, it's amazing. And for me personally, I saw a lot of things in the trees. There were a lot of things I can't describe. My body felt a certain way, and it was great. And it was flowing with the music. And then after about 2 hours, and I took 2 tablespoons. Some people took, like I said, 1.5, whatever. I took 2. After 2 hours, they ask you if you want what's called a booster. And the booster can be designed to keep your experience going, to kick it back up again, move it to a different phase, a different level of extreme. There's so different ways that it can be interpreted. I decided, since I was, and let's take a step back for a second. The purging process, whenever you hear people taking ayahuasca, there's always purging associated with the experience. And purging can be done in several different ways. Purging through throwing up orally, purging through your eye ducts, your tear ducts, crying, laughing. Some people go number two. However, that's less spontaneous than the oral purging. It would be more of a, let's go to the bathroom. I have to purge, at the other end. I was purging by crying. I, you feel it. You feel the connectedness with your peers. You feel the connectedness with nature. I always feel connectedness with my grandparents, my bubby, my grandma, rest in peace. She was a Holocaust survivor, and she's a source of strength that just lives on inside of me. And I try to embody that whenever I can. And also my grandfather, my pa, rest in peace, who is my daughter's namesake. And they were so important in my development. And I respect everything that rolls up to them as far as lineage. It's amazing. So I feel them. I feel, and like I said, it's ineffable. It's hard to explain the feeling, but it was there. And so I cried a lot because it was really powerful. And that's how I was purging. I decided to do a booster at 2 hours. They kind of interrupt the music and they say, "Hey, it's been 2 hours. Would you like a booster?" And everybody lines up that's interested in a booster. And I lined up and I got my booster. And I told I told the guy who was administering the boosters, he asked, had I felt it? And I said, yeah, I did feel it. And he said, here, this will keep it in. So it was a smaller dose, maybe a teaspoon. I'm not exactly sure, but he said, this will keep it in. And so I took my booster. Everybody else took their boosters. We laid back down, and I didn't really feel like things were moving along. So they say that if things aren't moving along, if you feel stuck, you can ingest some hape, the blowing the nicotine into your brain, and it can kind of get you unstuck, unpause the process. Excuse me. So I decided to do the hape. And when I did the hape, it hit me hard. It hit me really hard. I felt that floating sensation in my head, the calming sensation, but it was amplified because now I had one dose of ayahuasca in my system. I had a booster in my system, and the hape just hit me. And shortly thereafter, I purged. But man, purging with ayahuasca is not like purging from a hangover or purging from the flu. I hate throwing up from a hangover. I hate throwing up from the flu, food poisoning, because there's this extensive pain in my midsection, right above my stomach, kind of the top of my abdominal area, that sucks and it hurts and it's horrific. And so whenever I have an opportunity to throw up, I try to avoid it. However, when you throw up or when you purge under the influence of plant-based medicine, in this particular case, ayahuasca, it's a different kind of purge. It's much more organic. It flows. It's not forced. You don't have that same pain. So when I purged a lot after my hape was administered, but again, no pain. And you're sweating and things are coming out of your mouth and your nose. My shirt was completely drenched in sweat, but it felt like the right thing to do. It felt like that was what needed to happen. And so I purged, I laid back down, and then I started to get back into my experience. Same sort of interaction with my ancestors, crying, smiling, just enjoying the music. It's this thing called synesthesia, where if you're not familiar with it, synesthesia is the merging and overlapping of senses. And one of the big things that comes with psychedelics, ayahuasca especially, is this synesthesia. So they say you can taste colors and you can feel smells, and these senses all get merged. And it's amazing. But sometimes you're really not able to make sense of what's happening. And at that point, it was more of just enjoying the process and allowing these things to happen. And so I went through the ceremony. I looked around. There were some interesting people that were also under the influence of the medicine. They had all these nurturers that were, a lot of them were volunteers that were there to help us and guide us and nurture us through the process. Isha was there singing and playing guitars and guiding the ceremonies, but there were probably 25 people in white garb that were designated as nurturers and just there to help us. And when we were getting into the ceremony, somebody started yelling. They did not accept the medicine. They wanted out. They did not want to be part of it. And people get afraid because they always say, if you're going to go into one of these ceremonies, if you're going to go under the knife, if you will, take your plant-based medicine, you want to let go. You want to let go of everything and just give in to the medicine, like a roller coaster. You can't really get off the roller coaster once you're buckled in and you're mid-flight. And that's kind of how you have to approach plant-based medicine in these ceremonies. However, the urge is to resist. I mean, something's going to be forcing you along, guiding you along, and there's a lot of uncertainty, and so people resist. And I heard somebody say, "I don't accept this," and it sounded like they were really physically being aggressive and loud. And the worst thing possible is for people that are there in the ceremony to internalize that person's pain, because the goal is to deal with your own issues, not anybody else's. There's really no touching, no talking, because you're not there for anyone other than yourself. And it's okay to be selfish because it's your journey and Mother Ayahuasca helps you along. So the worst thing in the world would be to internalize this guy's pain and make it my own. And so what they did is they triaged the situation. They took this guy out from the physical, the immediate environment, and they dealt with him. And they have a way to, quote unquote, kill the trip with psilocybin. Xanax and other things have been used as trip killers. But with ayahuasca, they found that lemon and salt, and I don't know the concentration, I don't know exactly which types, but lemon and salt can be used to kill the ayahuasca trip. So they have that on hand. I assume they gave it to this particular person because after a while, we no longer heard from them or about them, which is for the best. But that person was done. And so we went back into our journey, and the process takes 4 to 6 hours in its entirety. And some people get up and they dance. Some people just sit up and enjoy the music. It's everybody's own journey. So I purged. That helped me along with my journey. And that night I slept like a baby. Slept like a baby. Lots of seeds were planted by Mother Ayahuasca in my brain. And I went to sleep. The next day, I did a day ceremony. And the day ceremony, unfortunately, it was raining after that night ceremony. Basically, the next 2 days were just all rainy. So we did it inside. And that ceremony was kind of a continuation of the first ceremony. It was great music, a lot of crying, a lot of connecting with my lineage, my ancestors, and great. And we were inside of a maloka, they called it. It was a big yurt, and that's where we did our medicine. I did my 2 tablespoons. There wasn't a booster during the day. They don't offer that. It was great. And then I did the night ceremony, the Saturday night ceremony. And that time I tried 3 tablespoons, or yeah, I believe tablespoons is the measurement. I thought I was infallible. Hey, let's do 3. 2 worked. Great. Let's do 3. But I found, much like psilocybin, the more you do is not necessarily the strength of the experience, but a continuation of the experience. So if you take psilocybin too late at night, you take too much, good luck getting to sleep because you're engaged. And I felt kind of that's what happened here with my 3 tablespoons of the medicine. So if I could go back, I don't know that I would exceed 2 or 2.5, just because it lasted a really long time at night. I did not purge during the day ceremony. However, the night ceremony, I did my hop aid to get into it. I wasn't purging. I decided to get up and go to the bathroom to pee because I like to drink so much water that I'm constantly peeing, which is fine. I peed, and as I was coming back to pee, it hit me. And so I purged quite a bit at that point. And I laid back down, and those seeds that the plant-based medicine, the ayahuasca had planted the first ceremony and the second ceremony started to sprout. And so all the problems that I had leading into the ceremony, all the things that were on my mind, the impediments, the roadblocks, all that stuff, I was now able to navigate them, and I was able to push through them and use the seeds and the tools that I'd been given in the first two ceremonies to do that. It was amazing. I don't like to journal. My handwriting is total dog shit. I can't remember the last time other than my journaling this past weekend where I've sat down and written anything. I almost have disdain for the process of writing. When somebody asks me to put my signature or write something, I look at them like they're so antiquated. Why are they even communicating with me? But I brought a book or a journal. I brought a pen, and that night I was journaling like crazy. I didn't want to lose track of the things that I had learned and the engineering that had taken place during the experience. And so I was journaling like crazy, and I got so much good stuff on paper. It was exactly what I wanted. My whole goal, my intention was, I've been in tech for so long. I've been my entire career. I've been 25 years of technology, and the landscape of technology is changing drastically. I'm an engineer. I like to build infrastructure. I like to build solutions. I like to look at the entire enterprise or an entire business and figure out the best path forward for them and for whatever their projects may be. However, with the cloud, with Google, Microsoft, Amazon, the big players in the cloud, it's all been built. There's no more infrastructure to build. It's built. You use commodity-based hardware to just scale as needed, and you have a user interface to just use the stuff that's already been built. And so that's great. I love the cloud, and it's there's so many great things associated with it because you don't have to have a data center anymore. You don't have to build stuff from the ground up. It's there. You just tap into it. However, if you really want to make it in the tech space now, you learn how to use the cloud tools and you become a data scientist, because data science is where it's at. Machine learning and AI and all that stuff. We're not building the foundation anymore. We're using it, and we're using it to solve problems and make things faster and more efficient. But that's not what I necessarily like to do. So it's kind of empty nest syndrome for me. I built everything. I built the infrastructure. I've done the projects. I've handed things off, and then I've done my due diligence. I've done my work. What am I going to do? I'm moving into, I mean, I'm not forfeiting my opportunity to make a living. And right now that's how I make a living. This is my side hustle, teaching people how to cultivate psychedelics, specifically psilocybin, and use them responsibly for adult based therapy, autonomous therapy. And so that's where I need to be. The systems, you build them, they don't tell you, hey, thank you so much for building me. Wow, I'm so efficient. And no, they run. And if you need to fix them or upgrade them, then you do it, and they don't say anything, which is good because you don't want a squeaky wheel. However, I want some feedback. I want to know that I'm helping people. So when I do psilocybin training, when I teach people how to grow, use things therapeutically, the feedback is amazing. The feedback is positive, and I know that I'm helping people. So that's where I need to be essentially, but I'm not going to forfeit my paycheck. So the side hustle needs to be make me enough money so that I don't have to deal with tech anymore. I still appreciate it, but I don't need it to drive my train. So that was my intention. And man, during that third ceremony with my journaling, I was figuring it out and I'm making sense of it. And it was amazing because that's exactly what I wanted. All kinds of other stuff popped up, but that was the crux of it. So mission accomplished. And so I wasn't able to get to sleep that much that night. The guy that was laying next to me, bless his soul, he has a CPAP mask and he couldn't find a place to plug in his CPAP mask. So he was snoring a lot. I thought a bear had wandered in and was sleeping next to me. Love that guy. I can't imagine if his wife shared the room with him at night and he didn't have a CPAP mask. So Wasn't really able to get to bed, but it was good. It served the journaling process. Next morning, I signed up for something called Kambo. And Kambo is really intimidating. Kambo is essentially a secretion from a toad. It's, let's see, what is the type of toad? Species of, I can't find the actual species of frog. However, it's a defense mechanism for the frog where they secrete this kind of oozy stuff. I don't know, it looks like maybe part of a chapstick or something. They make these secretions, and that secretion, they call it poison. Even people at Soul Quest called it poison, but it's a medicine. And so what they do is they take that medicine and they put it on your body. Well, let me explain the process. So Kambo happened very early in the morning. It was as soon as people woke up, you got together for the Kambo ceremony. And the cool thing about it, Isha, who I highly encourage you to look up Isha, IXA. If you go to Soul Quest website, you can find more about Isha. He was administering the Kambo himself, and just to be intimate with Isha and allow him to give me the medicine was really cool in itself. So I wanted to do it, but I had shied away from it prior because some people have called it 20 minutes of hell. People talk about it in a way where it makes it super intimidating. But I signed up for the Kambo. And in order to do the Kambo, which is designed to make you purge, not an optional purge, or maybe no, you will purge. In order to do it, they have you drink a lot of water before the medicine is administered topically to your skin. So within a matter of 15 minutes, you have to drink 4 quarts of water, which, if you haven't tried it, that is awful. It's like self waterboarding with your eyes open, right? So drinking these 4 quarts of water in 15 minutes is excruciating. And when people talk about 20 minutes of hell, I have to think they're talking about the water ingestion. Some people, we were sitting around in a circle trying to drink this water. Some people were throwing up trying to drink the water. That's how bad it is. So you're sitting there, you're drinking the water, guzzling the water. When you're done with the water and your stomach feels like it's going to explode because it's at capacity from all this water intake, that's when they administer the medicine. So what they do is you pick a shoulder, you roll up your sleeve, and the shaman, Isha in this case, they come over with a hot, I don't know, was it a twig or iron or something, and they burn your skin off. They burn a couple, to me, it was just like a couple little circles in my shoulder. They burn off the first layer of the skin, and then they take and they rub. Well, they don't rub, they make injection points. So I believe there were 2 injection points, but it could be any number of injection points within that burned off area to get right into your bloodstream. And so they put the injection points, they put the frog poison medicine into those injection points, and they let it get into your system. And then you wait. You hold your bucket, the purge bucket, which I got very familiar with the purge bucket over the course of the weekend because you always have it. You hold your purge bucket and you wait. And when the medicine starts to take hold, first thing that happens is your head kind of gets hot and swelled a little bit. Your body gets really hot. And then you feel the purge start to happen. And you want it to happen because your stomach is just suffering with all that water. And it's part of the process. So, and again, this is not vomiting like a hangover vomit. This is an organic, okay vomit. They tell you don't spit, don't disrupt the medicine, just let it flow. So you feel the purge start to come, and essentially you're taking all the water that you put into your system and you're bringing it back out and you're putting it in that bucket. And it comes out heavy and hard, like you opened up the bathtub faucet. It's coming out. And everybody's bucket had like a different color of bile or whatever was in there. Some were green, some were yellow, some were orange, red, no blood, which was good. The red was not bloody. And those are indicative of maybe what was in your stomach or emotions built up. There's some spirituality behind it, but you're purging, and you purge all that water. And then after 20 minutes or so, it's over. But it's not like ayahuasca where, oh my gosh, I can feel the direct correlation between my visions and my thoughts with the medicine, it's more of kind of like a delayed onset. But leading up to the ceremonies, they have a really strict, they call it dieta, a diet of things that you're supposed to stay away from, mainly so that they don't adversely affect your body after you ingest the MAOI. So MAOI, if you take an MAOI with, fermented fruits, some other things, it can cause hypertension, high blood pressure, and you don't want that. So there's a strict diet leading up to the ceremonies. And so none of that stuff that can mix with the MAOIs and cause hypertension. They also want you to stay away from any animal products, which I think there's more of a spiritual component to that because there's deaths and other things associated with that, regardless of how you feel, if you're a vegan or not. I am not a vegan. I love meat, carnivore all day. But I abstained from drinking, cannabis, meat, any animal products. I wasn't allowed to have sex or release. No sex by myself. None of that stuff. It was a pretty restrictive process leading up to the ceremonies. And I assumed when I got back on Sunday, I would be eating a steak and I would be releasing and I would be maybe having a beer and all that stuff. However, after the Kambo ceremony, Isha was very matter of fact about how your diet is not over. So from 3 days from the end of the Kambo ceremony, you were supposed to continue your diet with even more restrictions. If it didn't grow from the ground, if it wasn't nuts, fruits, vegetables, potatoes, you weren't really supposed to consume it. Water, all that stuff, no release, no contact with your significant other. I wasn't able to kiss my wife or have any relations. So my diet got more restrictive and then had to last for another few days. I asked exactly how long that 3-day period was going to be because I didn't want to wait any longer than that expiration date, but I wanted to respect the medicine and respect Isha and all the things that came with it. So I didn't have my steak and I didn't have any alcohol and I didn't have a release for 3 days. And I can't tell you if anything particular happened as a result of the Kambo, if it's some lightheadedness here and there. So I don't know really if anything came about. I really had some crazy dreams, a lot of dreams about when I did stand-up comedy and the people that were in my life and inspirational. And I think it was telling me, hey, get your ass back on the podcast and let your voice get out there because you have a lot to share. And whether it be on stage or in, podcast or whatever, get your butt back out there. And it's been, a long time. So that's what I made of it with my dreams. So I have to think some of that may have been associated or a direct result of the Kambo. However, I can't tell you whether that was the case. One thing that was really cool is on the flight back to Denver from Orlando, I watched a movie called The Covenant, which I don't know if you could like Guy Ritchie, but he's awesome. He did King Arthur and he did the Lock, Stock, Two Barrels, Snitch, some really great movies. But this was a recent Guy Ritchie movie that I hadn't seen, and starring Jake Gyllenhaal, the guy from this superhero from The Boys, the main guy, Homelander. He has facial hair and he's in this movie. But this was awesome. Covenant is a bond, a kind of a kinship, a connection between, in this case, people, a soldier and an interpreter in Afghanistan. A lot of things stemming from reality and actual facts, but I don't think that their relationship was based on true events. I'm not sure. But man, oh man, did that hit home some of the things that I felt and learned during the experience. Awesome. It's just a story of good nature and just kinship. It was awesome. So I'm not going to go into it because you can watch it for yourself. Watch The Covenant, whether you like Guy Ritchie or not. If you've never seen his stuff, this will make you a fan. One thing I learned also about myself is, it'd been a bit since I podcasted. And when you go a while since you've talked to somebody or since you've done something, jujitsu, when I take pauses from jujitsu, getting back into it is always a stressor because it's like, oh man, now my cardio's bad and I forgot things. And I haven't seen these people. They're going to ask where I've been. You just need to let that go. And one of the things that I drew from that came to me in this experience was there's a guy I did stand-up comedy with in Tampa. At that time, his name was Kyle. Now he changed his name to Dick Roos. And when I was starting in stand-up, I remember he came back, or he came into the scene, and he's a tattoo artist, but he's also a stand-up comedian. And he looks rough. Face tattoos, long beard, shaved his head now, head tattoos, wears baggy clothes. I mean, he looks rough, but he's the sweetest, smartest dude. And he came back after taking like 7 or 10 years off for whatever reason. And it took him a little while to get his momentum back, but he found his groove and he's been doing it ever since. And this was mid 2010s, maybe like 2012 or 2014, something like that. He's been doing it ever since, and he's been killing it, crushing it, working with Johnny B, some of my other favorite comics in Tampa, traveling and just doing great. And I just remember he took time off. It was scary for him to come back, I'm sure, but he came back and he found his path. So if he can do it after that long of a break, I could do it after a couple years. I could do it with a podcast, no problem. So shout out to Dick Roos. I hope you're doing well in Tampa. I hope you're still tattooing at a super high level, and your art is awesome. You're an inspiration, but you helped me get back on the saddle and make this work. I had my daughter's now 2.5, and I feel like every time I do this, whether I go into the knife with a heavy psilocybin dose or I do my ayahuasca experience, I feel like every time I come back, I'm better for her and I'm better for the family. And so just she sees a bigger smile on my face. I'm more engaged. I'm happier. I'm more forgiving. These are great byproducts of the medicine. And so I just want to give a shout out to her because she's an inspiration, and everything I do now is because I want to be a better person for her. And obviously there's some selfish components too, but she's my guiding light. I want to try to wean off Lexapro. I take Lexapro 10 milligrams because I have been an anxious person all my life. And Lexapro really helped me when I was coming off my ADHD debacle. It helped me get my footing again, and it helped those little pauses and stutters and other things that were a result of the ADHD burn-in process and my anxiety. It helped me a lot. And so for the past a handful of years, I've been taking Lexapro, and it's really, really helped me, but I take it every day. And I don't want to be married to an SSRI, a pharmaceutical. And so I'm going to try to wean off Lexapro. And since I got back from my ceremonies for my retreat, I haven't been taking it. And those hiccups, the stutters are not there. And so I'm going to ride that train for as long as I can, hopefully forever, indefinitely. But I'm not going to take my Lexapro for the foreseeable future. And so I'm really happy about that. I've also cut back on my cannabis intake. I was smoking cannabis a lot, and a lot of it was because I was stuck and I wanted a way to make that okay. And instead of finding a way to push through the sticking points and go over the impediments, I was finding ways to get around them and workarounds and easy way outs. But that's not okay. That's self-medicating to avoid the inevitable and avoid life is not okay. And if you take cannabis is a tremendous medicine if used responsibly, but I was overdoing it. So now I'll smoke a little cannabis, one hit at night to kind of wind down, and that's okay. I mean, it's like a glass of scotch at night. I think it's healthier to take a hit of cannabis. That's my opinion, but it's been really good for me. So one hit at night, not all day, not for hours on end, has been an awesome new me. And so I'm going to try to continue with that as well. One thing that I wanted to tell the podcast listeners, tell y'all about, is since we've last done the podcast, I got another French Bulldog. My original French Bulldog still around, still kicking. All the wisdom is still there. Brody, shout out. But we got a new French Bulldog. His name is Brussels Sprout, but we just call him Brussels. Brussels is he's a merle, which is like this kind of brown speckled color coat. He's a merle French bulldog. Brody's 60% Frenchie. He's 100% Frenchie. And we got Brussel, and Brussel is part of our family. He's just turned 1, but Brussel is a maniac. Brussel, anything that hits the floor is food for Brussel. Anything that is already on the floor is food for Brussel. Anything that he can reach is food for Brussel. So Brussel, not knowing this, we brought Brussel into our home, and he's a puppy, and we're like, hey, he's going to pee everywhere and eat everything and blah, blah, blah. No idea that Brussel would eat everything to this level. Brussel, when we first got him, we gave him one of those bones. It's a dog bone where you chew on it over time, and it whittles down and you eat it. It's edible, but it's meant to last for weeks, months. I don't know. He tried to eat it all in one sitting, and he's this little tiny thing. I mean, he was maybe a couple months old at this time. Tries to eat the whole thing, and the bone gets lodged in his throat. So the bone gets lodged in his throat. He's vacillating, trying to throw it up. Poor little guy's struggling. We had to take him to the emergency room. And he's in the emergency room, and they had to put a scope down his throat and pull this bone out so that he didn't die. He almost died. He was close, really in a bad medical state, but they saved him. And so we brought him back, and we're like, oh, okay, well, maybe he's learned his lesson, and he won't eat everything, and we won't leave those bones lying around. But then my wife, who, if you listen to the podcast prior to this one, you know who that is. My wife, Jill, she noticed that in our daughter's room, there were a lot of hair ties that she believed were on the floor, like they look like the old phone cord, like spiral hair ties. They weren't on the floor. She was positive that there were a whole bunch of them that were no longer there. And Brussel had been in our daughter's room. That's on us for not locking the door, whatever. She was positive. And I'm like, are you sure? Because if we take him back to the emergency room, it's expensive, and I don't want to waste anybody's time. She's like, I'm pretty sure that Brussel ate all those hair ties. So we took Brussel back in to the vet, the emergency group, and they recognized us. Brussel's really cute, by the way. He gives great kisses. He cuddles. He's a beautiful little creature. They took him back in. They're like, oh, Brussel. They ended up doing some x-rays, and they scoped out 15 hair ties, those little circular phone cord things, 15 of those, the ear of a stuffed animal, some safety pins, and some clips, and a bunch of other stuff. All of that. They scoped it out again, almost died again. So Brussel, he didn't learn his lesson. He just eats everything. And so that's 2 near-death experiences for Brussel. Thank goodness he's still with us. But what I'm trying to say is we had our daughter, stressful, consuming, and then our daughter is about 1.5 years. Here comes Brussel, so stressful, so consuming. I didn't sign up for that. I mean, I did because we adopted him, and you take whatever comes your way, but I didn't mean to sign up for that. So nonetheless, Brussel, we have to be very careful about not dropping anything on the ground, not leaving anything within next reach of Brussel. And that's our lives going forward, because we can't afford to be scoping Brussel's insides every 2 days because he decides to eat a toy or 15 hair ties or whatever. Mother of God. And I'm not a religious person. That was stressful. So Brussel, there aren't going to be any songs about Brussel. We're not going to sing any more Mook songs. I'm trying to change the direction of the podcast to be a little less of that and more learning and healing, and still some funny stuff and guests and whatnot. Not this time. But boy, Brussel. So if you hear us talk about Brussel, we'll probably sigh first. But there's a lot of good in Brussel, and he's a loving member of the family. One thing that I also learned during my experiences is that I don't need to be using the F word on the reg. I I've been using it too much. And if you watch TV and movies and stuff, everybody is using the F word, usually kind of mid-sentence. They've been using it way too much and it's lost its weight. I remember when I was doing stand-up in Tampa, Brian Thompson, who at that time was managing Side Splitters in Tampa, I believe he owns the club now, which props to you, man. You work your butt off and it has paid off. He said to all us comics I was competing in some sort of competition at the time, he said, "Hey guys, I know you like to use the F word. It's, part of your normal vernacular, whatever." He's like, "But just think about it." He's like, "If you use it all the time, it really doesn't have the same weight, doesn't have the same gravitas associated with it. But if you pick your battles and you pick your moments, you can make it a powerful word." And so, if you listen to, and I'm not to discount anybody that uses it, because like Bill Burr is one of my favorite comics, and I would hate to take that out of his vernacular because he uses it so eloquently to make his points. So if you use it and you have a reason to use it, that's up to you. I'm not going to criticize anybody or be a hypocrite. But if you listen to a lot of prisoners, if you listen to a lot of disgruntled soldiers in the heat of battle, if you listen to, and I'm a big UFC fan, Dana White, it's pretty frequent and it loses its impact and can be frightening. And it just kind of tells people who you are. You're showing your hand when I don't feel you need to. Dana White's a really powerful person, but I feel like it detracts from his power when he just uses it frivolously. So the one exception, in my opinion, and I'm sure you'll concur, is sex. Sometimes there's no better way to describe sex or something in sex or a sex act or whatever than using the F. So whether it be your screen time and what you're watching or your interaction with your significant other, let it fly. Whatever you need to do to prove your point and make your request. Sex, in my opinion, is the one exception. But man, I feel like if you use the F word frivolously and all our other cuss words short of ethnic slurs and, punk, the C word, other things like other cuss words, shit, bitch, I use those quite a bit. But the F word, pause. Just pause. Think of a better way to do it. Your sentence doesn't have to go at 100 miles an hour. You don't have to use fillers or descriptions that don't better emphasize your point. The F word doesn't need to be there. Save it. Save it for when you need to use it. That's my advice. Brian Thompson, thank you. But man, like you can get so much more accomplished and you can be more powerful and you can get your point across so much more eloquently if you just pause and think of a better way to articulate your point. The F word doesn't need to be a part of every single phrase, sentence, thought. It doesn't. If you watch Succession, they're trying to portray weakness, in my opinion. They may have power, but the F word doesn't make him more powerful. It just makes him look nervous. So that's my perspective. That's my interpretation of the F words. You'll hear it less from me. Maybe my podcast will slip through some censors as a result. I don't know, whatever. Don't care. I just don't feel like it's serving me any purpose. That being said, I'm not going to drag this on forever. I wanted to reboot this podcast with video. You could see my face. Not great necessarily, but everybody's doing video. I'll have guests on with video. I'll throw some stuff in, some graphics and other things to accentuate points. You're going to see video going forward. I'm going to keep the podcast on all the podcast mediums. And I'm going to really have some important stuff to say going forward. I met a lot of people during my experience that don't know the power of psilocybin. They don't know how to grow it. They don't know where to get it. They don't know how to use it. Meditation and psilocybin, holy crap, man. If you learn how to use it responsibly and effectively, it'll change your life. And that's kind of what I want to do with this podcast. So we'll focus on psilocybin, but I'm open to discussing all entheogens. Prefer not necessarily to boast about the synthetic ones, try to keep them organic if possible, but ketamine and MDMA, man, LSD, they're also very powerful and have their own space. But on the next podcast episode, I really want to get back into the basics of cultivation. I want to talk about the still air box and the laminar flow hood, sanitization, decontamination, and how to make sure that you start your growing process the right way. Because like I tell people, it's like wearing a condom. You don't have to wear a condom, but you don't want to wait a month down the road and realize that a positive test came back that you weren't hoping for. And now you got to deal with the consequences. If you use that condom, which I don't use condoms until they start making them feel better. I have a joke about this. I won't regurgitate my joke, but until they make them more pleasant, I'm not using condoms. I have a wife, so it's not an issue, but I'm not going to be pro condom other than the birth control aspect. So pulling out is always great. The rhythm method works. Vasectomy, all that stuff. Sorry about STDs. We yada yada. But using a condom is a great way to make sure that you don't have that surprise after the fact. So think of a still air box, laminar flow hood, a decontaminated growing environment. Think of that as your condom or your birth control for your process, just so you don't have mold and stuff that pisses you off and makes you want to go back in time and do things differently. So let's exit this thing out. Please check us out online. The Mustache Room, that's MUSTASH, the Mustache Room, mustacheroom.com. Our parent company is Mustache Brands. Yes, there is a direct affiliation with that company. We do lifestyle products for collapsible products. There's cannabis products. We're going to have some mushroom cultivation products coming down the pipe. So check us out online. I want to give a shout out to some unofficial sponsors, not paying me, don't know I exist. However, I would love for them to send me a cease and desist order telling me not to use their names, because that means I caught their attention. Maybe they'll be an official sponsor. I don't know. All I got to say is my first unofficial sponsor is OOFOS, OOFOS. They're recovery sandals. They have all kinds of other footwear, but we're going to focus on the sandals. I like the slides. I work from home and I walk around the house all the time, man-made surfaces. And I was walking around the house barefoot on these man-made surfaces all day long. And I had ankle problems. I had back problems. I had posture problems. My whole spine and my whole body construct was out of whack. And so I went to a massage therapist, somebody that deals with like body work. And they recognized that my psoas, which is kind of like in the hip flexor area, was all out of whack. They noticed that my ankles were all out of whack. And they asked me what kind of footwear I'm wearing. And I told them about my normal footwear. And I mentioned that I don't wear any footwear around the house. And that just triggered something. And they said, you have to wear the right footwear that gives your feet a chance to kind of set the tone for the rest of your body. So I bought these UFO sandals. And ever since I started walking around the house or in man-made surfaces, I don't like to get them dirty, so I don't walk everywhere in my UFOs. But ever since I've been using them to walk around the house, no more ankle problems, no more structural problems. My psoas doesn't act up. It's amazing. And so with more people working from home, people are walking around barefoot. I mean, you can walk around outside barefoot. You can walk around on non-man-made surfaces barefoot. That's what's meant to be. But the man-made surfaces, you're just not meant to be walking around barefoot. So UFOs, they feel great. It's kind of like a croc type material, but man, oh man, oh man. I would love to have them as an official sponsor, but we'll roll with the unofficial designation for now. If you have any ankle issues, structural problems, you're walking around on these man-made surfaces barefoot, try the UFOs, straight up. We'll leave the unofficial sponsors at that. I'll introduce some more as we go. Oh, one more. Umbo mushrooms, UMBO. On my most recent episode of the podcast before we took a break, I talked to Del Jolly, who is one of the founders of Umbo mushrooms. He's also the man behind Unlimited Sciences, which is a psychedelic company. They do a lot of work with psychedelic research and veterans and other things. Great, fantastic company, great guy. Other co-founders of Umbo, Rashad Evans, UFC Hall of Famer, and Jake Plummer, who was a great college quarterback. Jake the Snake. He was a quarterback for the Denver Broncos. Just a super cool dude. Owns a mushroom farm outside of Boulder. Myco Love Farm. Those guys started up Umbo. That was good enough for me to embrace them, but they make some really great medicinal mushroom products for energy, Myco Rise, for getting to bed, Myco Rest. They have bars, which are really tasty with all natural ingredients, all kinds of stuff. And they're gaining momentum. So if you have any interest in medicinal mushrooms, not psychedelic mushrooms, not culinary mushrooms, but like lion's mane, cordyceps, reishi, turkey tail. If you have any interest in those, check out Umbo, UMBO. Umbo, I would love to make him an official sponsor, but until then, or until I get my cease and desist, whatever happens, they're an unofficial sponsor and I love them. So check us out online, Mustache Room on all social media. There'll be so much more cool stuff coming. I'm so happy that you could join us. You get to see what my face looks like and this bald ass head. Stay well. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you.